Welcome to Episode 2, Baselines and Overlays, Tailoring You Can Defend. In this discussion, we explore how organizations customize NIST 853 controls while staying within defensible boundaries. Tailoring is often misunderstood as casual flexibility, but in truth, it is disciplined adjustment backed by rationale and documentation. A strong tailoring mindset recognizes that one size rarely fits all, yet every deviation must hold up to audit and logic. This mindset begins with guardrails that keep creativity from sliding into chaos. Imagine setting house rules before rearranging furniture. The structure remains intact even as you make it your own. In security programs, those guardrails define what can be tailored, what must stay fixed, and what evidence will support the choices. Building on that foundation, baselines exist to give every organization a consistent starting posture. A baseline defines the minimum set of controls that must be in place to achieve a particular level of assurance. Think of it as a blueprint drawn to a specific scale. It sets proportion before detail. The purpose is not to prescribe the perfect program, but to prevent important protections from being missed. Without baselines, two systems with similar risk might end up with wildly different defenses. With them, a small office network and a regional data center can begin from comparable expectations, even if their end states differ. The baseline creates order, so tailoring can proceed with clarity instead of guesswork. From there, the process of selecting low, moderate, or high baselines translates the abstract idea of risk into specific control sets. The low baseline supports systems with minimal potential impact, moderate suits typical enterprise environments, and high applies to critical or national systems. Choosing between them requires sober reflection on mission sensitivity, data types, and operational dependence. For example, a payroll system handling sensitive personal data likely deserves the moderate baseline, while a power grid control network leans toward high. This selection is not about ambition but alignment. Picking the right baseline early prevents unnecessary rework later and ensures all following tailoring decisions stem from a sound foundation. Once a baseline is chosen, determining the actual impact levels and their drivers brings nuance to the process. Each system must be evaluated for how a breach would affect confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Those three pillars are weighed individually, not as a single score. Imagine a public information website where confidentiality is low, but availability is critical because it provides emergency alerts. In such cases, different pillars can map to different impact levels. This step requires conversation among business owners, system engineers, and security staff to agree on what truly matters. The result becomes the anchor for control selection, funding, and oversight. After understanding impacts, overlay triggers begin to appear, specific factors that warrant tailoring beyond the baseline. Overlays apply when certain sectors, technologies, or privacy conditions introduce distinct requirements. A healthcare system might apply a Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act overlay to reflect patient data concerns. A cloud provider might need a technology overlay addressing shared infrastructure risks. Privacy overlays might add safeguards for personally identifiable information. These triggers make tailoring both defensible and efficient, ensuring that unique operational contexts receive proper attention without rewriting the entire framework. Building on that, combining overlays demands care to avoid contradictions. Sometimes, a system qualifies for multiple overlays, such as a cloud service supporting healthcare data. When that happens, overlapping controls may reinforce one another or conflict. The goal is to merge them thoughtfully, preserving consistency while retaining necessary rigor. For instance, two overlays may set different audit frequencies. In that case, the stricter requirement generally wins. Documentation should capture how conflicts are resolved. Combining overlays correctly turns a complex compliance puzzle into a harmonized structure rather than a tangle of competing demands. From here, tailoring decisions must rest on explicit rationales, not personal preference. Each change, whether adding, removing, or modifying a control, should answer one question: why is this adjustment justified? The rationale might involve cost-benefit analysis, system architecture, or inherited protections. Writing these reasons down builds credibility and ensures continuity when personnel change. For example, reducing logging frequency because another monitoring layer already covers the gap is defensible if documented clearly. Without explanation, the same decision looks careless. Rationales transform tailoring from subjective interpretation to accountable engineering. Closely tied to rationale are parameter choices that must remain documented and traceable. Many controls include open fields for timing, roles, or thresholds. Each decision made in those fields defines how the organization interprets a requirement. If you decide backups will be verified weekly instead of daily, the reasoning must appear in records along with who approved it. Parameters give flexibility, but traceability preserves trust. When auditors review them, they look less at the number itself and more at the logic behind it. A traceable decision path ensures others can reproduce or challenge conclusions with transparency instead of guesswork. As those records grow, teams must distinguish between risk acceptance and true exceptions. Accepting risk means consciously living with a known condition because mitigation costs outweigh benefits. An exception, however, is a temporary or conditional departure from policy that demands follow-up. Confusing the two erodes accountability. Imagine skipping a control because a vendor tool is delayed. That is an exception requiring a corrective plan, not acceptance. In contrast, choosing not to encrypt non-sensitive test data might be a documented risk acceptance. The difference lies in permanence and oversight. Mature programs record both types with clarity, showing leadership understands trade-offs. When tailoring extends across shared systems, inheritance becomes part of the equation. Inheritance means relying on controls implemented by another party, such as a cloud provider's data center safeguards. Understanding which protections are inherited prevents duplication and clarifies responsibility boundaries. For example, physical access controls may belong to the hosting provider, while user access management remains with the customer. Misjudging inheritance leads to either redundant effort or dangerous blind spots. Tailoring should always map who provides each control function and how evidence will be obtained. Shared responsibility works only when both sides can demonstrate their part. Despite best intentions, pitfalls often surface during tailoring. The most common are overscoping, underdocumenting, and drifting from the approved baseline. Overscoping adds unnecessary controls that strain resources without adding value. Underdocumenting leaves assessors guessing why choices were made. Drift occurs when systems evolve, but tailoring records do not. Picture a program that once justified omitting a control due to limited data, but later expanded its services. The earlier rationale may no longer apply. Avoiding these traps requires continuous attention and disciplined record-keeping. Tailoring is not a one-time act, but a living process tied to system change. To keep tailoring healthy, metrics become the feedback loop. Coverage shows what percentage of controls remain in scope. Variance measures how much tailoring differs from the baseline. And change volume tracks decision activity over time. High variance might signal creative risk management or creeping inconsistency, depending on context. By reviewing these metrics, leaders can tell whether tailoring strengthens or weakens assurance. For instance, if the number of tailored controls grows each quarter without new justifications, it may indicate loosened discipline. Metrics turn tailoring from subjective art into measurable governance that can be defended confidently. As metrics evolve, review cadence and decision governance close the loop. A good program sets scheduled reviews to confirm that tailoring decisions still make sense as systems, threats, and missions change. Governance boards or risk committees often handle this work, ensuring multiple perspectives weigh in. Revisiting tailoring annually or after major incidents keeps the framework honest. Without such cadence, old assumptions persist long after conditions shift. Consistent governance shows that tailoring remains deliberate, documented, and accountable, not accidental drift disguised as flexibility. In the end, tailoring decisions you can defend come from structure, not spontaneity. The art lies in balancing adaptation with discipline. When every adjustment ties back to a documented rationale, aligned baseline, and clear governance record, the result is a program that can explain itself under scrutiny. Tailoring done this way demonstrates maturity, not deviation. It shows that flexibility and accountability can coexist, proving that NIST 853's strength lies not only in its controls, but in the thoughtful reasoning behind how each organization makes them its own. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.